Hi there guys, welcome back to the shop. We are back for high voltage fun and I am so excited to be doing this again. So my very good friend Crazy Joe has moved to Michigan to be a part of the insanity that is my life, which is pretty cool. And along the way he was like, I want to work on my car audio thing. So he needed a small cable for his car audio project. I don't know. But I have run very large Tesla coils off smaller cable than this. So he needs an end on it. And I'm like, I can help you out and we can make episode 13 for the high voltage series because it means I get to play with my big crimpers. So if you look right here, this is a big, beautiful crimp lug with the heat shrink. This is what you see if you buy a nice cable, like they look like this. Okay, they've got the big lug and it's properly crimped. And this, a lot of people think that this is out of their reach. If you're going to be playing with big Tesla coils or high energy, high amperage, impulse stuff, like building your own versions of thumper, kicker, stomper, any of that, there's a tool you're going to need, and I finally get to show it off. And the cool thing is, my very good friend, freaking Dan Eakin, turned me on to this a while back. He had one, and he was talking about it on the live show one night, and I'm like, what? Those are that cheap? I need to check this out because I had, well, I'm going to show you my crimper and I'm just going to let you have a laugh at it. That's my crimper. This is my old crimper, okay? And I've had this for, oh God, I've had this since Christ was a corporal. But if you look inside, it's got the one side of the die, okay? And then that's the other side of the die. And you put A with B, and you have the wire in there, and you put the thing in there, and you smack it with a big-ass hammer. And this is the crimper that I've had for years. I think, I'm like a solid 60% certain that this is a big wire crimper, but I'm not 100%. If this is something other than what I was told it is, please comment and prove me wrong because I'd love to be wrong on this. I'd love to know what it actually is because the shape isn't quite right. Like it is, it's just weird. I don't know. But it makes a hell of a good wire crimper, whatever the thing is. So I've used it as such for years, but there's a better way. You don't have to go at things with a big ass hammer. There exists this. Let's flip that around for you. This is the Temco Industrial Tango Hotel 0006. Now, they don't sponsor this video, and they're never going to sponsor me after the things I say about them, but it doesn't suck, and it's cheap. And I'll put a link to this in the description. I'll put an Amazon link in there to the description because if you're a home gamer, if you're a high voltage hobbyist, this is a great tool. It's reasonably priced, it's wonderfully capable, and it's absolutely powerful enough. We're gonna crimp on a lug for a piece of 1/0 welding cable. This is like the fine strand, million wires in it, so it'll do anything you want to do at the home gamer level. I would not trust this if my career depended on it. Like if I was a professional electrician doing battery bank installations or something like that. Like if you go to Tesla's manufacturing plant and look at what they're using to crimp battery cables, it's not this. But for the home gamer, it's fine. So it's the one I got and it's the one we're going to check out. Now as we look inside here, you can see it's got a complete set of dies that go by color and number and everything. A watchful eye will notice they're all in pairs because there's a top die and a bottom die, and they go in the crimper here. The controls couldn't be simpler. You've got a squeeze handle and a valve. If you've ever used a hydraulic jack, one of the little bottle jacks where you've got the turning knob and the lever, it's the exact same setup. It's really that easy. You tighten this down, you squeeze the handles together, those squeeze together. When you're done, you loosen this back up, and it's spring return. Okay, so it's There's nothing to this. So in order to do a termination, it's self-explanatory really, but I'm going to explain it to you because I am the voice inside your head. So we're going to take a minute, and this is rock simple. You will need an end, a couple bits of appropriately sized heat shrink, and something sharp. And probably, you know, adult supervision, have your mom on speed dial, whatever you need to do. And of course, the big chunky piece of wire. So now our fitting wants to go in about a 1/2 inch or 1 centimeter. This is made in China, which lines up with the one. So I'm going to, with the utmost of care, slice the jacket on this without nicking the wire, without performing impromptu surgery on my thumb. And then we just split off the jacket. Look at that. All right, so you can see it's cut a little crooked. That isn't going to matter for this application. What we have here is a 1/0 fine strand, very sexy, very pricey, solid copper welding lead. That's a nice piece of wire. I wish I had 1,000 feet of that just laying around. So we've got our terminal, and this is just a screw lug terminal, crimp style, with a funnel end, which makes life easy. So we're just going to drop that right on there. Now I would like to have a little bit more engagement there. Yeah, I'm going to come back another 1/8 of an inch because it's easy to do at this stage. It's easy to just cram a little bit of extra wire in there. And because we're heat shrinking this, it won't be a problem if I have just a hair extra hanging out. Also, this is only 12 volts, so I don't have to worry about any electrical like corona losses or any stuff like that. This is all at 12 volts. It's going to be high amperage, but very low voltage. So you can get away with murder at 12 volts. Like the car audio guys have no idea how easy they have. They deal with big fat wire, but they don't have corona losses at 12 volts. So now we slip that in there and see how we feel. And since I've got this angle in it, I'm going to make use of that angle because down inside my thing it's angled as well because there's, see, it fits that. So if I have that angle, why not make use of it? We can just slip that whole thing in there. Now the big thing for me at this point is making sure I don't have any flyers, and I don't. Okay, now before I put this on for real, it is very good. There are ways to do this after, but you will be much happier if you remember to put your heat shrink on before you have the fight of getting it over the crimper. And this heat shrink just barely fits. So I don't think you'd be able to get this over the crimp. All right, so I've got my heat shrink slipped up there. You can see that's all nice and tidy. And I'm going to slip this one up it as well. This one's huge. I'm just going to run that way up, out of the way. So now we know we have 1/0 cable, and we look through the things and we find our 1/0 dies. And that's the 1 and the 0, and you see they'll match. Now the dies have a little pin on them, and that pin just drops right in the holder. You pop this out. You can see this is for 6 gauge. And just pop that right out. And top and bottom don't really matter. So there's our 1/0 in. So it's that easy. We're now completely configured to crimp 1/0. So you loosen this all the way to make sure that this has retracted fully under the spring tension, and then close it all the way down, and you're cool. So now our tool is ready. It just takes a second to set it up. We've got our angle here, and I'm just going to feed this right into the bell mouth on it. And then make sure that angle lines up with our thing. And now we're good. We've got, it's nice and full, and like this is completely filled with copper wire. I'm very happy about that connection. That is good. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that super tight piece of shrink wrap down over it, but I'll have that fight when I get there. So we get this lined up and in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up here and just tighten it down. You can, the tool, you have to balance everything. The tool and the fitting and the wire and get it all just where you want it. So I set the tool on the table and then just bring it down. Because that'll let you get everything lined up and let it just kiss on there. And it's okay to have your hands like right up in on this, because this moves so slow. If you figure out how to hurt yourself with this, you probably had it coming. Now you can see it. You can see that's crimping down around there, and those dies will come all the way together. I'm just going to keep squeezing this, and we can see it from the back. And you only get one shot on these. You can't do it twice. So bring that all the way down. And this is a big wire, so I'm going to put that right on the table and just lean on it. Oh, because I want those to come all the way together. Oh. All right, and when you're comfortable with it, when you think you're there, turn the knob, this knob, you loosen that, and watch the jaws. They'll open on their own. See? You just pop right open. And then you can pop your thing out, which may be stuck to a jaw. Look at that. Is that beautiful or what? Professionally crimped, very nice, and there's just the slightest little gap at the bottom, which is fine because we're going to hide that in a second. This is, if you were to take this cable and cut that off, it's about what you'd see on the inside. It's somebody did it with a big crimping die. So we've got that on there. Now, is it even worth it to try to pull this down? I don't think it'll work, but I'm just going to leave that piece of heat shrink on there. And can I get it there? Can I make it happen? Oh, I might. I just might. It's way too big. Thank you, Adam Savage, for recommending to me the use of barbecue or bamboo skewers in the shop. They are super handy when you need a gentle little pick. They're suitable for all kinds of things. You can pick everything with one of these except scabs. Oh, that worked great. Huh! All right. All right, so we've got our heat shrink pulled down. Now the next step is just to shrink that in place. And this is just our base layer of heat shrink, which really just seals that gap for safety, so that under no circumstance do we ever have any kind of a flyer come out of that. A flyer is where you'll have a single strand or two that work their way out of a connection, usually because they weren't properly crimped in there initially, which happens all the time, especially on fine strand connections like this. It's where you have one that is not part of the group. So now we've got our first one on. We bring the second big piece of heat shrink down, and you want to have the heat shrink come down to about this level. Okay. You don't want to cover the plate, but you want to cover the ramp. And you can actually come down a little extra. This is how I usually do it. Come down just a hair extra, and then after you shrink it and everything's where you want it to be, you can trim it back with a razor knife. So we're going to start in the middle and then head towards this end and just shrink everything on our way down. And that's as shrunk as she's gonna get. Cool. And there's your perfect, large, hydraulically crimped connection. That's beautiful. And if you want to trim this back here, you can just grab a razor blade and just trim that back, like up here. Like if he's going to use this for car audio, so you just trim this back and you can set a line there. I'll just trim that there. There. That's beautiful. I'm happy with it. So that's how you use it. That's what you can do with it. This is predominantly for big, heavy single conductor cables. You could break out a piece of like SO cord with this if you wanted, but usually lugs, bolt lugs, are for big stuff. And when you're done, this just drops back in here. The storage is kind of screwy. As you look inside, you can see that there's exactly space for every die you have, provided you have one in the tool. You can't have the tool empty and still fit all the dies. So that's kind of dumb, but the case doesn't suck. It's decent. Like, I would totally trust this to knock around in the bottom of my toolbox for several years. They're not expensive. It's ubiquitous. It's a good, solid, basic knock-around set of crimpers. If it's the kind of thing that you want to use for high-voltage hobby work, where this is a thing you keep, in your workshop, they're great. I've been using this one for quite a while now. I've done a bunch of them, and I'm going to use mine for. You'll see this a lot on the boat project, on various electric vehicles. I have the second electric bike that I'm about to build, and this will get some use on that. But yeah, it's good for big beefy cables. You'll see it out there, and that's the basics of how to use a hydraulic crimper. You guys have fun. I'm Chris Bowden. As always, I'll see you next time.